Joy News TV is always available for you. We're actually streaming the live. What we're also streaming is also on Facebook, Joy News TV. And, well, let me introduce the beautiful Gifty Andwapia. Gifty, how are you?
Hi, Roland. I'm blessed. Yourself?
I am blessed too.
Good morning. How are you doing? Did you sleep okay?
I did.
Okay.
Perfectly. And we do have Ben Epson joining us this morning.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff.
Uncle Ben, good morning.
Sister.
Nice seeing you. I love your portrait up there.
Yes, so we are seeing a double of you.
That's my twin brother.
Okay. Penny Ben.
Nakaka.
Ampo.
Well, so we'll go through the newspapers and then we'll quickly just make a pick or two, and all of us will go through. But you will go through the Dispatch and the Finder, and I believe you have them. And
yes.
I would want Gifty to start.
What do you think we should let Uncle
Ben start? Okay, Uncle Ben, please start. The ladies are speaking.
Okay, let me start.
No
Which one do you want me to start with?
Any is fine. I think you should start with yours.
Okay.
We should start with yours. It makes a lot of meaning to us.
Okay. You know, for the past few weeks, I don't know if it's an agreement or not, but members of parliament, especially the leadership, they've been complaining about the need to improve their working conditions. The majority leader continued last week, and one of your sister stations, there was an interview with a former member of parliament, Captain Retired Ekrabia Efadate, and he was also lamenting. And on that platform, I raised the question that I've been in this job for over 46 years, and I've never heard any court of competent jurisdiction sentencing someone that I hereby sentence you to go and be a member of parliament. If you go in the first time and it's not good, you are not obliged to pay huge sums of money to delegates, especially in the safe seats, to come back to parliament. As you and I speak, in January 2021, the ex gratia for serving 4 years in Ghana's parliament, Roland, is going to be 510,000 cedis. So basically what I said on that platform, and I repeat it, is that if you think the kitchen is hot, please get out.
Well, which is what the banner headline on the Dispatch newspaper, right? So we can take a look at
so the Dispatch says Ben Epson on MPs wanting more money. No court has ever sentenced anyone to serve as an MP, each likely to get 510,000 as ex gratia in January 2021. He also has 41 years of the June 4 uprising, and down memory lane is what Mr. Ben Epson takes us, the Dispatch, when over 150 persons died, the June 3, 2015 fire at Kwame Nkrumah Circle. We're all here, and well, very sorrowful time.
Okay. Should I go on with the...
Well, I mean, the other story, there are two stories. One is basically, I think that the current Chief Justice directive that judges should be proactive. This 5-year-old incident is very painful to see people with scars, people without ability to work again, still not getting any compensation. So I'm hoping that as we celebrate the new chief, recently I've seen a number of cases in which some started 2017, they're giving judgment for compensation. So I'm hoping that this will revive them. And whether we like it or not, 41 years ago, we had June 4th. And I know that the architect and former President Jerry Rawlings will today be doing a virtual 41st anniversary. And we always, I think that that time, I think that was my first year at the university, I think that we should learn lessons. And we may have paid a high price, That is why I always beg everybody to ensure that every 4 years we do a good job of doing free and fair elections, so that we never give opportunity for any military adventure to happen again.
Well, Gifty, so go through the newspapers quickly, and then we'll
so grab yourself a copy of the Dispatch newspaper. You have the story about the MPs, and you have the story about June 4th, you have the story about June 3rd. They're all in the Daily Dispatch. Let me take a look at the Daily Graphic. It says, fix these death traps. And it's a picture of something that looks like a drainage system near a very large pothole in the middle of a road. It says an abandoned manhole in quote, right after the first bridge at the Kanishi Markets. Picture by Emmanuel Quay, and more pictures on pages 13 and 25. Strategic investor for Komenda Sugar Factory. Cabinet approves deal. Also story on the Daily Graphic front page. It is by Nana Koredu Ajimai. Parliament House says structural maintenance works have started on the Komenda Sugar Development Factory in the Central Region following the signing of an agreement with the strategic investor Pac Agrotech. The story is continued on page 3, and they are investing $28 million in 3 years. That's what the story says. Parliamentary Committee okays Constitutional Instrument 126, and NPP National Council endorses a Kufuor flag bearer for 2020. Those stories are on the front page of the Daily Graphic. On the back page, we have some stories about minerals. It says manganese bauxite way bridge 85% complete. And the story is from Timothy Ngebe, and it says the construction of a bridge at Apemanim in the Ahanta West District in the Western Region for the weighing of manganese and bauxite for export is 85% complete, and the work was begun in November last year. Grab yourself a copy, take a look at that story as well. Then the final story on the back page of the Daily Graphic says 14 suspected land guards arrested. I think that's good news. Too many problems that land guards give people, and we certainly haven't been able to deal with that problem wholly. Let me take a look at the center spread of the Daily Graphic and what it says. So it comes with a very a number of pictures of the people who I believe are victims. Yes, some survivors of the disaster here. The story says June 3 disaster victims appeal for compensation. Some survivors of the June 3, 2015 flood and fire disaster in Accra are appealing to government to fulfill the promises to compensate them. So that story is there. And another big story in the center spread is FDA to conduct further research into impact of tobacco use. And NIA staff undergo orientation on COVID-19 protocols. These are some of the stories in the Daily Graphic. Get yourself a copy, otherwise you can get their app. Take a look at the stories that they have for you. Shall I go on, Roland, or?
Yeah, we can quickly wrap up.
Let me follow it up with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. The Ghanaian Times newspaper has a picture of some people undergoing the pilot registration process by the Electoral Commission, and the story says a pilot voter registration exercise successful. I beg your pardon, but Western Region suffers technical glitch. The story is on page 13. There's another story there says include COVID-19 testing in yellow card. That's GIS, Ghana Immigration Service, recommending. They want the inclusion of COVID-19 testing in yellow cards. Mr. Esuatechi, good morning to you. The Immigration Service, they watch Joy News 24/7. Thank you to all the immigration people who watch us. Back page of the Ghanaian Times, Adaklu District Assembly distributes 1,556 coconut seedlings to 12 farmers. And Regional Minister blames massive flooding of Ho on lawless residents. Well, that's why we need to make laws and enforce them, because people can always be lawless if you allow them to be.
If they're lawless, it means that they're flouting a regulation.
Yeah,
law.
You don't have a, but well.
And you're a key enforcer of the law.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised.
Yeah. Anyway, center spread, Ghanaian Times. Easing of restrictions on religious activities. A very interesting conversation, it looks like here on the center spread of the Ghanaian Times. Churches reluctant to congregate for worship. Majority prefer virtual services to protect members from COVID-19. That's a raging conversation on social media as well. Ghana's COVID-19 cases climbed to 8,548, 3,132 recoveries and 38 people have died. Include COVID-19 testing in yellow card. Ghana Immigration Service recommends that story is on the center spread. And EC pilot voter registration exercise successful, but the Western region suffers technical glitch. That story is right here in the center spread of the Ghanaian Times. Do get a copy.
Okay, so let's go through the daily guide. It says voters register. NDC battles AGEC today has attached pictures of Dominic Ayine, Dr. Dominic Ayine, former Deputy Attorney General, and the current one, we're going to say the incumbent one, also a lawyer as well, Godfred Yabwadaming. On the side, we have Justice Amenuvo representing. Also, we have NDC ready for register. Over 3,000 recover from COVID-19. Conference center collapsing, according to engineers. Been a long time to build this.
Was renovated.
And it needed to go through some level of rehabilitation of a sort. The Business Finder, IEA backs BOG's 10 billion Ghana city government bailout and calls for judicious use for the intended purposes. Uncle Ben, I know that the number of stories you're interested in on the front page of the Business Finder.
Yes, I think that Cabinet approved strategic investor for the Commander Sugar Factory. Interests me a lot. I think that we'll have to get a situation in which so much money went into the Commander Sugar Factory. There were things that there was no sugar, there wasn't any attempt. From my layman's point of view, there wasn't any raw material to feed the factory when it was launched. And I believe that money has gone down the drain. I'm not saying that we should be in a jungle, but if somebody goes to steal a piece of yam costing 7-10 cedis, he's sent to court, he's fined maybe 100 cedis or 3 months in jail. Because he has not got 100 cedis, that's why he stole 7 cedis worth of yam. He goes in for 3 months. And people, by the stroke of a pen, a signature, they call this country money. I believe that, not that I believe in witch hunting, but you must be held responsible with the same margin of punishment. And that I think that, yes, it's good that there's a new investor coming, but who was responsible for all the taxpayers' money which Roland went down the drain some years ago?
Yeah, it's a key question. There's a concept paper and also some sort of research that was undertaken by one Samuel Essel on why the project failed, and ultimately the lack of outgrowers of sugar was a key and a vital part of some of the investigations or the information that he gathered. And if you look at that concepts paper, it means that should have been the first thing that should have been done before we say that we're putting together a factory in the first place. But again, we have to blame the actions of the politicians, don't we? They take the actions by way of policy direction, and they have to pay for it.
Yes, if a politician, you see, I think it will get to a stage that it may be far-fetched. But I think that if this country decides to have a 1 6-year term, we will save money, and politicians will be a bit more responsible. I'm not alluding to corruption, but in our 2 terms, 4 years, you come the first year, you are settling down. The last year, you are getting ready for elections. If you are re-elected, the same pattern. It means that if you have 2 terms, you are effectively having 4 years. 1 6-year term, your first year settling down last year. I'm raising this point because I've been trying, for the first time, I make it public, I've been trying to always get a list of blacklisted contractors. If, Roland, you finance me for my first term, and I come and they say that you've done some deals, can I ever authorize your prosecution, knowing that I will need your finances for my second term? But if it's 1 6-year term, you, the financier, will be very careful, because you finance the person who becomes president. He could deal with you because he doesn't need your money. It's going to be 1 term. When that happens, I believe that we'll be in a situation where most of these contracts will be fulfilled. I raised the issue of blacklisted contractors because most of them don't finish. If your name is published and somebody sees you do another contract, they will ask you a question: have you fulfilled, did you fulfill the contracts you had in the past?
Interesting. Interesting thoughts you put together there. For me, it's not really about blaming. It's about creating a system where we can track. So like you're saying, if you have that list of blacklisted contractors, and we can do something with it, because the bottom line is that once you know that my people are in power, even if you're blacklisted, you know that you will still get something. You can get something to chop at the end of the day. I think that we have not really over the years created the system where we can actually demand and get value for money. But I'm wondering, Uncle Ben, if you think that people can individually, people especially who live in this area, can take up some of these issues, perhaps test the law, go to court, you know, or something.
I think that any government, maybe it's too late now because everybody has brought they are bringing out their programs and so on. But I think that, for example, if Joy FM, you have a list of contractor A, B, C, that, let's say, during COFOR time, they did not finish, so they've not been awarded under contract. The late Mose comes, Mahama comes, and during Mahama time, they start. I'm sure, I know Joy FM, once you have the list and you see the road has not been done, you will say, but this company in 2008 or 2010 was blacklisted for not doing this road. Because if you listen to session address of presidents over the last 15, 20 years, it will be like it's a poem. There will always be mentioned roads that needs to be completed within a 3-4 year cycle. Why is it that every session address a government decides to continue? I think that the government should be able, we are coming to election. If the NPP decides that, look, we are going to look through the last 10 years, all these contractors have not. So this is the list of the blacklisted contractors. They make it available. I believe that media outlets like you would take it off. And if you're a contractor and you know that if the deal, the contract sum is $1 million, your profit margin is $300,000, and somebody demands $300,000 kickback, you will not sign the contract knowing that you cannot finish, you'll be blacklisted, and Joy F will be your tail. Yes, you may be able to decide to part with 100,000, you can still play around, but people before signature will get your profit margin. They still decide to do it because they know they can abandon it and we get another contract somewhere. So going to court is very expensive. So they should just make it easy for us. Give us the list of contractors you blacklisted. Period.
Yeah. A critical issue that has become topical is the subject of not only the pilot that ended yesterday for the Electoral Commission, but also a CI that has been approved by the Committee of Parliament on Subsidiary Legislation, ultimately to be brought before the plenary for the debate. And as it's laid, ultimately also it brings to fore the position of the Electoral Commission that we have the national ID card. That should be the ultimate document you need, and the passport or a guarantor. Of course, we know there's a case in court, but these have become related issues of disagreement among many parties. The NDC, we have the inter-party resistance, and we're expecting that we can have an outcome in the courts today. But outside the court, this is a big debate. What do you say?
I think that I've always believed that, fortunately, the EC is a constitutional body. So if you decide to sue the EC, you will go straight to the Supreme Court for interpretation. In January, around mid-January, when there was the disagreement, but let's go back, in 2016, the MPP group, Let My Vote Count, were very vociferous in trying to get Salatu Said, the then head of EC, to change certain things. I advise them go to court. Only the Supreme Court can determine whether the EC has unlimited power to decide on a new register. That did not change Salatu Said's stand. Why did the NDC think that also demonstrating was going to change Jim Mason's stand? If from the vetting of the Chief Justice, he said that in the unlikely event of another election petition, it will not take the 240 days that this country was subjected to. It will take a maximum of 42 days. And once the case starts today, I think that by the next 2 weeks, this thing will be disposed of so that the country moves on. I believe that he's been very proactive. He's been well in putting that in so the country can move on. I'm sure one question that people have often asked is that why was the EC going on with procuring things, doing trial runs and so on? I think that'll be unfair to the EC, because if the EC decides to put their hands in between their thighs and wait for the NDC to go to court, and what if they go to court and the NDC loses? They would have lost a few months of active work. So I believe the Chief Justice, and I'm sure within 2 weeks, we'll see the head and tail of this court case.
Okay, so let me take you through the Daily Statesman. It says the banner headline, we need new register. Kufuor rallies support for EC's impending fresh voters register. That story is on page 2. And it comes with a picture of former President John Agyekum Kufuor. And I'm sure, obviously, he's making a point about getting the new register. That's if the headline captures it succinctly. Tema Mpakadan Rail Project, 60% complete. Also comes with a picture of the Railways Minister in Kofi Sichiado host Sunday night on Asase Radio. Back page, we've got sports there. Let me take a look at the center spread, and then we can take a quick look at the story itself. So, okay, just a few seconds, and I'm there. Produce strategies to tax digital businesses. That's a story by Dr. Nachia, who is urging the GRA. He's a tax expert. And Alan Cash is speaking. He says we need sugar policy before Commander Sugar Factory is handed over. So hopefully when you read that story, it gives you an insight into the story that Uncle Ben, you were pretty interested in. I want to take a look at the page 2. The story about former President Kufuor rallying support for the EC. Just the first sentence says the Electoral Commission, despite the seeming brouhaha that has characterized its decision to compile a new voters register, continues to receive support from well-meaning Ghanaians as it prepares to carry out fresh mass registration. It goes on and on. It says the latest to join is former President Kufuor, who has fully thrown his weight behind the upcoming compilation of a new voters register. So this is what the Daily Statesman is reporting. Shall we take one more and then we...
if you look at the disagreement, it's about whether we should include the old ID card or not. And the premise on which the opposers argue is the fact that, and this came up when we had an interaction with many MPs on the majority side yesterday, that some of those who already have their names on the register, registered with the card of the NHIS.
NHIS, yeah.
Okay. So that becomes a foundational issue for them also to have a big argument on. But the question is, looking at the time frame, what can we do within that period? The EC has outlined its ways. I am thinking the stakeholders need to come on board and ultimately try to rally support behind the Electoral Commission, because they have been mandated by the Constitution to make sure that they organize elections and produce an electoral register that is not contestable. I don't know what you think, or Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben, what do you make of all this in the first place?
I think that last year, by the time in 2016, the total number of registered voters was 15.7 million. The EC projecting it will register about 16.5 million. So in effect, they are expecting to increase the number of voters by 800,000. If you juxtapose the number of minus those who have not registered before, those turning 18, I think that it means they are projecting that possibly they'll be cleaning about 900 to 1 million voters off the register. I think that the NDC clearly has gone to court, but I think if they don't have, they must have a plan B. Because when the LI in Parliament increases the number of persons who can guarantee for persons who do not have those basic requirements, from 5 to 10. So whilst you are going to court, you should have a plan B of, for example, making sure that at the various grassroots levels, A, B, you have the requirement, register and do this 10. In 2016, the MPP was against the voters register. Yet they won with a margin of nearly 985,000 votes. They did not slack in there. And the NDC, when they do this, they should also be able to, because I'm sure that from 2024, we are going to have Ghana card to vote. So there will never be the issue of having a voters register and all this brouhaha again. I don't think so.
Uncle Ben, I just, before we wrap up on the news review segment, I just want to find out from you, we have barely 6 months to the next election. Are there any patterns you see that you can share with us at this point?
Please go again.
Any patterns, voter patterns, you know, that you're seeing at this point that you can share with us?
Oh, one thing is clear. There's going to be absence of large crowds. There are 2 or 3 potholes which could affect the voting pattern. One, who the NDC picks at running mate and how they've been able to ginger, because there was a lot of apathy on the part of their supporters. 2, the MPP will be having their primaries on June 30th. Most of the safe seats of the NPP, they won between 11,000 and 13,800. If they persist in trying to disenfranchise or disqualify contenders, and there is a level of apathy, we did that work towards last year, towards the book I'm finishing, the MPP candidate Nana Akufo-Addo could enter 2020 elections minus 400 to 450,000 votes, because if, for example, I support Roland and Roland has been disqualified, I will not get up and vote, and I know that maybe the party won the seat by 11,000. If you take 4,000 people per constituency, 4,000 times at least 100 safe seats, that makes it 400,000. So these are some of the pitfalls that could affect their chances and voting pattern.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Uncle Ben, for this morning. I'm just going to wish you a great day. We're going to take a look at myjoyonline.com. Yeah, what do we have on myjoyonline.com? This is not an NDC battle. Asedun Ketia Court support for stance against voters register requirements, and that Roland told us the story is on Daily Guide that says that the NDC is meeting the AG and the EC in court. Other stories there: NHIA probes radiotherapy unit of Kolebu and charging cancer patients on approved fees. That's a story, an exclusive story to Joy News, our investigation. And final year University of Ghana students to remain at home despite easing of restrictions. U.S. Ambassador to Ghana Stephen Sullivan outraged by George Floyd's killing, and Parliament's Subsidiary Legislation Committee votes 12-9. It's one of the biggest stories today. 12-9 to OK controversial Electoral Commission CI. So it looks like a pass. UG student elated by decision to keep them off campus despite easing of restrictions, and driver jailed for stealing church instruments. Two more stories there. Coronavirus, hundreds of Nigerian health workers test positive. Very bad news. And George Floyd will be laid to rest next week following memorial service in 3 states. And on that note, on that particular story, about all 50 states, about 50 states have seen protests in honor of George Floyd. And BBC Africa, Roland?
Well, so we have a couple of stories there. In streaming live, they have the live update. They call it the Africa Live. Nigeria to reopen airport for domestic flight, they say. And what it takes to be an African in the U.S., a perspective from an African who currently is a U.S. citizen, is also well captured there. But other stories also occupy the Africa page of the BBC. You can go there, get also onto myjohnline.com throughout the rest of the day, because on the international front, the home page, Trump tries to divide us as ex-defense chief. And Trump, I do like the man. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like all right, Gifty.
So Benedict also is joining us with sports, what's happening in the arena of sport. Yesterday we saw that press conference by the sports minister. Benedict has more of that coming up shortly.